Good morning. Welcome. We're glad that you've joined us today as we record episode 230. Hope everything in your life is going splendidly. We are working hard to get ready to leave. We have a conference that we're speaking at this weekend, and I know that it's probably this way for you too. If you end up having to go out of town, there's like a lot of work and prep that goes into even being able to just get out. And so that's the stage that we're in right now.
And then it's all the last minute stuff to make sure we have everything for the conference ready to go because we're leaving bright and early tomorrow morning. So we got all the books and shirts and everything else that we need.
Yeah. So it's a lot of work to get ready to go, but anytime that the two of us get to go away together, there's an excitement that builds, and we can't wait to just have time, just the two of us. And then especially in marriage conferences, because we absolutely love talking about marriage. We love meeting new people, trying to be helpful, trying to be used of the Lord. So it's really like our favorite thing. So that's kind of where we're at. We're like getting all excited. What's going on in your life? Let us know. We love to hear from you. We love to know what's going on with you.
Well, and we passed Valentine's Day.
We did.
So we're going to talk about that in the next episode.
Yeah, we're
going to talk about it next episode, kind of how our Valentine's Day went. We had a great time.
Yeah.
Hope that you had a great Valentine's Day, whatever you're doing, whether you were celebrating with a spouse, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, or just the friends and the family in your life. I hope that you had a really good time.
Yes.
We were having some conversations with some young adults that we know that are in our connection group, and we always get stuff for our daughters for Valentine's Day, the little chocolates and whatever else. But we weren't aware of how many of our parents do that for their kids, even as they get older, and how important that is to the kids.
It was so important to them.
Yeah.
It's interesting to hear that.
Got kids in their late teens, early mid-20s that still love to get stuff from their parents for Valentine's Day. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah. It's neat that people are doing that.
But tell us about your Valentine traditions. Like, what are some of the things that you do to kind of make the day special for the people in your life? We'd love to hear that and have a conversation about it.
All right. Ready to have a conversation about this?
Yeah. What are we talking about?
We are talking about when to give your kids space and when to force them to talk.
Okay. So conversations. Talking about conversations. Okay.
We're going to have a conversation about conversations. I feel like that word is going to be overused on this episode.
All right. We'll kind of switch it up. What's another word for conversation?
Talking.
Chat?
A discussion.
We can have a chat.
A discussion.
Let's chat about this.
What's slang right now for a discussion?
Yip yap. We're going to have a little yip yap about this.
I don't know what is slang for discussion, but I know what isn't slang for discussion right now, and yip yap is not it.
But I think I just threw that out there. I may have just started something.
I don't think
I
you
might
have.
have started a trend. A 44-year-old man starts out trend.
If you are trying to start a trend, I will help you. I will back you.
All right, let's yip yap it up.
Let's yip yap it up.
Gather round, everybody. It's time for a family yip yap. The family meeting is a show
You're such a nerd.
that's all about family relationships. We're the Osterkamps. I'm Thomas, and this is my wife. Wait a minute.
Oh.
Normally, I have words here. I know it by memory because I've said it 230 times.
Yeah.
Actually, more than that because sometimes I have to repeat.
You know what? This isn't even my typing. This is my copying and pasting.
Yeah,
I always copy and paste the
I was
intro.
like, oh, the line's not there.
Yeah.
I got distracted.
You know what? We had a family meeting while I was typing the episode.
Yeah.
And so it was everywhere. All right.
All right, anyways.
Let's try again.
We're the Osterkamps. I'm Thomas, and this is my wife, Chief Yip Yapper. The Yappity Yipper. Yipping the yaps. Lysandra.
Hello and welcome to our family. Welcome to episode 230 of the Family Meeting Podcast. We are going to have an awesome episode today. Thanks for joining us.
Maybe the best one yet.
What?
I think this is going to be the best one yet.
Okay, cool.
230. We're still improving, still learning, still growing.
Yes, we're not done. We're not there yet. We haven't arrived. On today's episode, though, we are going to discuss when to give your kids space and when to force them to talk to you. And how do you know the difference and how do you do it? And it can be sometimes tricky. And the older our girls got, the more I realized like this was a thing. When they're little, you're just like, what's wrong? You're
tell me what's wrong. Yeah.
And typically a smaller child is going to want to tell you what is wrong. It is a very specific personality type that's like, I don't want to talk about it when they're 5.
Yeah.
Most 5-year-olds just want to tell mommy what's happening or daddy.
Yeah.
But anyway, what I noticed though is as the girls got older and older, and oh my goodness, sometimes like they didn't want to talk about it. And then style of communication began to pop out too, where like some of them, they want to talk about everything right away. Others of them don't want to talk about anything at all. Others of them want to wait a little while. They need time to process before they talk, but they do want to talk. It's like, wow.
Yeah. And all your kids are going to be different. And so just like we're all different. So trying to figure that out and navigate that with each of your kids, can be a little tricky.
For sure.
But before we have this conversation together, we are excited because we are leaving tomorrow to head to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. We're going to be with our friends from Barnhart Baptist and Mark Harvey and his church. We are so excited about that.
Can't wait.
And the kind of the schedule of this marriage conference is a little bit different, but I'm looking forward to it. So we're going to get there on Thursday. Starts on Thursday night, and they're having like basically a get-together with everybody Thursday night. And then the conference officially kicks off Friday, and there'll be 4 sessions that we're going to be doing on Friday. Couple in the morning, then one after lunch, gonna take a little break, and I think one, if I'm remembering right, it's right before or right after dinner.
Cool. Sounds great.
And then Saturday is hey, just you can spend the day in Pigeon Forge doing whatever.
Date your wife. Date your husband. I love it. This is gonna be great.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. So that is coming up this weekend, the 20th through the 22nd, and then we're just 2 weeks away from spending time with the Butos and Grace Church up in Pekin, Illinois, for their marriage conference. That's going to be March 7th through 9th. And as far as I know, you can still register for that. So there's still an opportunity for you to make some time for that. We've already heard from some of our listeners that they plan to be there. From the Midwest, they're going to make their way. And so we're looking forward to seeing some old friends of ours, getting to know some listeners for the first time, and meeting a lot of these people from this church for the first time. So it is going to be a great time. Mark your calendar for that. We'll talk about some future speaking engagements we got coming up for the rest of the year, but those are the ones we're kind of literally staring down the barrel of right now. And getting ready for.
We really love everything we do. Like, we do a lot of different things together. Wait, you don't like to paint, but
I don't like to paint. I like if I've got to paint, then we're working together. Yeah. Because I just love being with you. I love spending time with you. We are true teammates in life. Yeah. So Lysandra and I right now are speaking together at our church, and we're doing a series. And we spoke a couple Sundays ago about Aquila and Priscilla. Mm-hmm. And it's really a couple that Lysandra and I just emulate because their names are always listed together. They're always working together. They are such a team, and that's kind of how we are, and I love that.
I do too.
So even if I'm doing something I hate, at least I'm doing it with the person that I love, and we got to pay the bills. So
yeah, it is. That's really beautiful. But what I was going to say is, we love pretty much everything we do, but there is something really special when we head into like our speaker season, when we get to go and speak at different churches and at events and meet new people. And we really, truly love this.
Well, and each event is a lot of fun for different reasons.
Yeah.
It's always fun to get to go to a new place with new people and speak. And it's also a lot of fun to go back to places where we've already spoken and we've already got to know them a little bit and head back there. We're going to be heading back to Mississippi with James Howell and their church again this year, and I'm really looking forward to that. So every event we have together is just so special, but I agree. It is probably my favorite thing that we have the opportunity to do together.
I think so too. Me too. Which is cool. It's nice when it's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into the topic of our discussion today. We're going to talk about when to let your kids have space, when to kind of push your kids into talking. And I wonder if you've ever had that moment where you started to talk to your kids and you're like, hey, what's wrong? And all of a sudden, for the first time in your parenting career, they're like, I don't want to talk about it. Because I remember the first time that happened to me, and it really caught me off guard. It was with our oldest, Catherine, partially because she is the oldest. So she was the first one to get to that kind of stage of like, I don't necessarily want to talk about everything all the time right now. And then also she has the personality. She is the one who I referred to at the beginning of the episode. She does want to talk about things, and she knows she feels better after she does. But she is the one who has to have time to process before she talks, which is like Thomas.
Yeah. Well, and you're talking about that moment where your child for the first time says, I don't want to talk about it. And that is, it's such like for me, in most instances, it's like, okay, great. We don't have to have this conversation.
You're like, I just got to get out of jail free card.
Unless I understand something seriously is going on and we need to talk about it. But for you, you want to talk about everything. So when somebody says, I don't want to talk about it, it's like, like I feel like you get a little broken inside like a robot.
Oh, yeah.
That like wires got pulled and you're just kind of spinning in circles. Like, what do I do now?
Yeah. Well, definitely that. But also when someone says I don't want to talk about it, I actually want to talk about it more because I feel like it must be really serious. Because things that are not serious, it's like really easy to talk about. So if you don't want to talk about this, oh my gosh, what's happening?
Is it that it's serious, or is it just like, because you said I can't, then I want to
No.
all more? Like, hey, don't walk on the grass. Well, I never even thought about walking on your grass until I saw the sign, and now I don't want to do anything else but walk on your grass right now.
No, that's not my personality type. I'm not like the thing that is off limits I want. I'm not like that at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that it's not that. It's because I'm like, now I'm very concerned that something serious has happened or that it's like a real serious issue.
Well, and here's the thing too. Like if I see a sign that says don't walk on the grass, I immediately want to walk on the grass. And a lot of times I will. But if you're like, I don't want to talk about it, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So like it doesn't work in every situation. You can't like reverse psychology me into having a conversation.
Yeah. So I can't be like, I don't want to talk about it, hoping that you'll dig into
Now, if you're like, I don't want you to touch me right now, then I'm like, oh yeah, we're definitely doing this. So
okay. So you're just you. You don't make any sense is what you're saying.
No.
Yeah. But so if our kids are truly upset, like you can see it, something is really has broken their heart, and they say, I don't want to talk about it. What's your feeling inside? Like, how do you feel when they say that?
I don't feel any way about the fact that they don't want to talk about it. I feel bad that they're going through whatever it is that they're going through. And so depending on the response, and we're going to get in all this, but especially for our daughters, if they're highly upset, and I'm not talking angry, but
sad, brokenhearted.
Yeah, like brokenhearted, I just kind of grab them up and hold them and let them cry, and so I kind of have that response. It's really not about, I don't want to talk about it right now. That doesn't bother me at all, okay? Because I understand that there's a lot of times where I just don't want to talk about something. But my heart still is hurting for them. I still want to do whatever I can do to try to help them feel better. And then if they want to talk about it and they get to that place, then great.
Yeah. So here's how I feel when they say that they don't want to talk about it. I don't feel anything personal. Like I never feel like, oh, you don't trust me or anything like that. My thing is I feel frustrated because I know that they will feel better if they can talk about it. So I'm frustrated because they're prolonging their own pain.
Yeah.
That is how I feel.
Well, and you said something just a second ago, so I kind of, and it made me have this thought, and I want to throw this out to the parents who are out there, because some of you may take it very personally.
Yeah.
When your child says, "I don't want to talk about it," and I just want to caution you about making it about you. Like whatever it is they're going through, they're having a difficult time, and maybe they don't want to talk about it because they're embarrassed or they're scared or because of a response you had in the past or whatever else. If you make it about you, then they're definitely not going to share with you in the future. So most likely it's not about you at all. It's just
Right.
they need time to process, and think things through and whatever else. So for those of you who, you have a tendency and it's just your personality, well, to feel the
rejection.
Yeah, but just I'm trying to think of the right way to word it, where it's you just kind of take everything on. You take it personally. You take everything personally. Mm-hmm. So just try not to take it personally, because most of the time it's just not about you.
Yeah, excellent point. So in preparation for this episode, we were having our own family meeting, and we asked the girls, we said, girls, our episode is about when to have your kids talk to you and like kind of forcing them to talk to you, and when to give them space and let them be. And we were like, what are your thoughts? And right away, our kids had things that they spit out right away.
Well, and all of them are a lot like me in the fact that they're very sarcastic and joking and all those sorts of things. So
we have a very sarcastic family, a very goofy family.
Answers all reflect that, and in no way reflect how they really feel about it.
Exactly. So here's their first response, though, and this is just for your own enjoyment. This is not going to help you in your parenting.
It may help you feel better about your parenting.
It might make you feel better about the monsters you have living in your house. All right, our girls said this when we said, what are your thoughts about when to have your kids talk to you and when to let them be? One screamed out, "Don't ever talk to me." And then
as we're talking about
having
a conversation.
Then one of them hollered out, "Always give them space." In other words, don't ever make them talk. Just always give them space.
Who said that one? Do you remember?
I think it was Catherine.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Violet said, "When you guys talk to me, all I hear is blah, blah, blah."
Blah, blah, blah. And she just kind of went on like that.
And then Catherine added to her statement and said, "When you guys talk to me, all I hear is blah, 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 tacos."
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's been a help to any of you parents out there, but
I think the thing to take away from it is if you want to talk to your kids, get them tacos.
Okay.
That'll soften their hearts.
Start the conversation.
Husbands, that works for your ladies as well. Your girlfriend, your wife, get them tacos. They'll feel better.
When you said your girlfriend, your wife, you were not talking to the same man, right?
No.
Men who have wives and girlfriends.
No. Well, that does remind me of a meme I saw today. It was like on Valentine's, I was going to get my girlfriend a bouquet of flowers, but my wife wouldn't let me.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah.
We do not support that, by the way, everybody, just to clarify.
We don't, but I know we have people who are single who listen, they're in relationships, and all of that.
Trying to learn from what they can.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to start where we really love to always start, and that is in the Bible. And we're going to see one thing that can possibly help you when you're going through this, where you're like, oh my gosh, my child all of a sudden doesn't want to talk to me about this. This is weird. This is new, different, whatever. Keep in mind that there are seasons in parenting. There are seasons in everything. In fact, that's what we find in Ecclesiastes 2. And so let's take a look at verses 1 and 2, and then we're going to skip down to 7, okay? For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. So after we have this first verse saying, okay, there's a season for everything, then he goes on to list all of this different seasons, okay? A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to pluck up what is planted. And we could go on for the next several verses, but we're skipping toward the end.
Yeah, I noticed you cut out the time to embrace.
Yeah, I cut out a time to embrace. Because this is not that time, babe.
Well, it says also a time to refrain from embracing, but
this is that time. Okay, and then verse 7 is the one that really helps us for today, and that is a time to keep silence and a time to speak.
You have a rough time with the first part, don't you?
I have a terrible time with when to keep silent. The phrase like, oh, I was just biting my tongue. I've never bit my tongue literally, but figuratively many times. I have a really hard time with when to keep silent. But sometimes there are seasons and moments where it's time for your kids to be quiet. And they might not be able to talk about the thing. We're going to go into all the different kind of scenarios here, but
well, and not just time for your kid to keep quiet, but time for you to be quiet and just understand now's not the time for them to talk about it. They don't want to talk about it. They're not ready to talk about it.
Yep.
And so there is a time as a parent you need to keep silent. Like, you don't have to talk about everything right now in this moment. And then, obviously, it says there is a time to speak. And so the goal is to have the conversation, but have the conversation in the right time.
Yeah. And how do you know when it is the right time? So we're going to kind of talk about ways that you're going to know when it's time to push them to talk, like it's been too long or whatever, and we're going to go through that. And then when is it the times to be like, okay, we don't need to talk about it right now.
And there are situations where it might be important to gently encourage your child to talk.
Yes. Even
if they're reluctant. And a lot of that has to do with, you know your child better than anybody else. And so you learn to read the situation.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to interrupt your thought because, yes, you know your child, but your child changes too. And so sometimes it's trial and error.
Yeah.
Like where when our girls were younger, they wanted to tell me about everything. And then as they got older, they started to develop their own style of communication, and hormones, of course, entered the picture in a big way. And so all of a sudden, I didn't really know my child anymore. Like I knew my child, but not this new version of them, right? So that may happen to you. And sometimes it's trial and error. And you're like, well, I pushed too hard right now. I shouldn't have done that. I'm going to learn from that, right?
Yeah. But, you kind of understand, like, I've got to try to gently encourage, keyword gently there.
Yeah.
Encourage your child to talk, even if they don't want to, even if they're reluctant. But it's crucial to approach these moments with sensitivity and care. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be very careful. I'm going to be very sensitive on how I approach this conversation. Because if you push too hard here and they're not quite ready, you're going to damage trust or make them shut down more.
Yeah.
And so what they're going to start to learn to do is they're going to start to learn to put on a brave face. And they're going to start to put on a show so that you can't see when they're upset because you've pushed into a conversation they're not quite ready to have, or in a way that they don't want to have it. Mm-hmm. So here we're going to give you some situations where it might be necessary to push a little.
Yeah. Yeah.
So not every conversation needs to happen immediately right away, but there are some times where it's like, okay, we need to have some conversations here.
Yep. Okay, so here's a few things. If they are keeping something that could be harmful to themselves or others, it is time to push the conversation, okay? Because your child may be dealing with something like bullying, self-harm, mental health issues, depression, anxiety, all those kinds of things. So if there's anything like that, it's important to get them to talk. You've got to push, right? And I understand that, like, you feel like you shouldn't push may push them away. But in a situation where it could be like self-harm or mental health issues, you're going to have to push. And that may mean taking them to a therapist or whatever, which we have done. We have allowed our children to go to therapy that has really helped them. But when you're doing this and you have to get to the conversation, you have to talk about it because like they're in danger or could put someone else in danger or whatever, then you want to have careful communication, right? You want to create a safe space for them to talk. So you might be able to say something like, okay, I know you're not ready to talk about it right now, but I'm here for you if you need me and I can help. And I have concerns that maybe you're hurting yourself or you maybe have some emotional needs that we need to get taken care of right away. And so I want you to go see this person, or I want you to talk to me about it now. And so acknowledging that they are not ready to talk about it, but explaining to them why it's crucial that they do.
Another kind of tell or sign that it might be time to, gently move into a conversation is when you notice significant behavioral changes.
Yeah.
So, obviously throughout the day, I think this is true even with boys from what boy parents have told me, but it's true of girls, definitely. True of women, definitely.
Okay, got it.
That throughout the day, there's going to be changes, emotional changes, behavioral changes.
Yes.
All right, but, when you see something significant, it's like, okay, they were chipper and they were happy and they were laughing. Last time I saw them, they walk around the corner and they are super ticked off, or they are an absolute wreck of tears. You're seeing some significant changes there. Mm-hmm. So if that behavior shifts drastically, such as becoming withdrawn, angry, or unusually quiet, like if Lysandra gets quiet, I'm like, oh Lord, something has happened.
Lord, help us all.
Yeah, and that's where I tread very lightly. I approach with reverence and fear to figure out what the situation is. But it could signal that they are struggling with something. And in these cases, while you should be patient, it's also important to persist gently. And you notice this, we keep talking about, precaution, gently, careful, right? And you might just say something like this. So you want them to know, hey, I want to have this conversation. I'm willing to have this conversation, but I'm not necessarily gonna press you hard on this. I'm going to just kind of crack the door open for that conversation and let them know, hey, this is open. You might say something along the lines of, I know you might not want to talk about it, but I'm here if you need me, and I can help. Mm-hmm. So I'm not necessarily forcing them in that moment to have that conversation, but I've cracked that door open so that when they want it, they can have it.
Yeah.
And, I'm noticing you seem upset a lot lately. Can we talk about it when you're ready? When you're ready, I'm here.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Here's another time when you're going to have to push through, even though they might not be ready. And that is to avoid long-term emotional buildup, because that can happen. Sometimes keeping your emotions bottled up can affect your well-being over time. And that's true of your children as well. If you are one of these people who never talks about their emotions, I am telling you it's affecting you. You might feel like, no, it's not. I'm fine. I can process on my own, or I don't need to talk about anything. I don't need to have resolutions for anything. I'm telling you, it's hurting you. Do not do this long-term emotional buildup thing, okay? And we don't want our kids to either.
Well, and I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, but the book Surrounded by Idiots. And it's talking about the different personalities that people have and how some people, it's like emotionally, they let everything off right away. And then you've got others who literally store up everything until finally it just all comes out.
Yeah.
But learning if we can teach our kids to learn how to vent that, it's like we're releasing the pressure so it doesn't just build up all the time.
Exactly. And so you might need to encourage them to talk early on rather than allowing these emotions to build up and get to that point where they're going to like just burst and it's going to be like a fire hose exploded, right? And so helping them with like what are some healthy coping strategies? And you can approach them. Maybe you could say something like, I know you don't feel like talking about it right now, but I really want to hear what's going on. And it's okay if you don't have all the words, just take your time. And we have one daughter where I struggle so much when she has to take her time because I'm like, oh my goodness, oh, it's taking so long. I'm just waiting. And she's like trying so hard to get the words out. You can almost see it physically, her like trying to push words out of her mouth.
And the silence is like torture for you.
Oh, it is absolute torture. I'm sure it's good for me, but wow, it's hard. And I love her so much and she's worth waiting to hear, and everything, but it's so difficult.
Nice that your daughter is worth waiting.
She is worth waiting, but I will tell you what, it's not easy.
But when another time where you should kind of step up and try to have the conversation is when it impacts their relationship with others. If a child's problem is affecting their friendships or family dynamics, gently pushing them to share can help resolve tension. And of course, we have a family of 6. So anytime you're in a relationship with anybody in close proximity, there's going to be issues, going to be things to deal with. And so a lot of times we have to help and teach our kids how to have these conversations so that they can find resolution between them or with all of us. So if, maybe your kid, for example, is struggling in school or having trouble getting along with a sibling. Talking through it can clear up misunderstandings and help them navigate the situation.
All right, how about this? When they are in denial or you're seeing that they are avoiding everything, they're just trying to avoid the reality. So if you suspect that they're maybe avoiding the topic out of fear or shame, it may be time to just kind of gently prompt them with reassurances that it's okay to be upset. It's okay to be vulnerable. I'm not going to freak out. And then, of course, you have to keep true to your word and don't freak out. But you can really try to say something like, listen, I understand this might be hard, but talking about it is going to help you to feel better. I promise. And I've had to do this with some of our kids because we have one daughter who she's not just waiting to process it. She really, truly believes that she doesn't want to talk about anything.
Yeah.
Maybe not anything, but almost anything. Yeah, she just feels like, no, it's not going to help to talk about it. And I know that that's not true because I've watched, well, I know it for humanity in general, but I've even watched her feel better when she talks about it multiple times, right? So she's one of those that I have to kind of push a little bit because she wants to just avoid it. She wants to pretend like something never happened. She wants to pretend like the feelings aren't there. And so she's one that I'm going to have to push more to like talk about it just to help her get through it and to process those emotions.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's all about how you push.
Yeah.
So we need you understand as a parent, like we've got to have these conversations, but you need to be careful how you work your way into those conversations. Because if they're not ready, try not to force them, but instead offer opportunities for them to express themselves at their own pace. And so it may be that we've talked about some of the things that you could say, right? But it may be, okay, I've said that. I've kind of let them know I'm here whenever you need me. And a little bit of time has gone by, half hour or hour or whatever, and you see them again. It's like, hey, are you ready to talk now?
Right.
And so once again, it's all, you heard the tone I said that. Like, I'm not trying to force my way in. I'm letting them know I care about you. I am interested. I have time for you. And so you may have to do that 3 or 4 times before they're ready to actually have that conversation there.
All right, let's flip the coin here and let's talk a little bit about how and when to give them space, because there are times when you need to just let them be for a little while, okay? And it is tough. Man, it's tough when you want to help your child, but then you sense that, okay, they need the space. This one's really hard for me because I tend to be like, I'm one of those people that I want to find the quickest route to the end, no matter what the end is. So like, even if I'm driving home and I don't have an appointment, I want to get home as fast as I can to use the least amount of time to get home.
Yeah.
And there's no reason for it even. It's just about getting to the end faster. And I feel
there is a reason you want to get home so you can start to accomplish the things at home that you want to accomplish.
Yeah, I guess so. But even if I'm not like rushing to a meeting, like if I guess though I'm always rushing to the next thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like, even with this kind of stuff, with helping my kids process their emotions and feel better, I want it to be fast. Like, I'm just like, okay, this will be fastest. So just hurry up and talk about it and let's get this done with. That makes me sound very unsensitive.
Well, and I think what you're trying to say is we want to get to the resolution, get to a place where we feel better about it as fast as possible. So it's not like you're not coming from a place, I just want to get this conversation over with. I want to get to a place where we feel good.
Yeah, where
like,
you
where
feel
we're happy
good. Like
again.
where my child is feeling good again, right? Yeah. So sometimes though, when you need to give them space, it's really challenging, and we totally get that. But giving them room to breathe while you're still available and they know, okay, I'm available to talk, but I'm letting you breathe. It is a delicate balance. It's really tough. But it is important to create that safe space and the open environment and open communication where your kids feel comfortable to share what's on their mind. Yet you've got to think about that timing. You got to think about the approach. And sometimes you need to just back off and respect their boundaries and be like, okay, they've said, I don't want to talk. Rather than pushing that boundary, like we've already talked about, I'm going to allow them to have that boundary. And I'm going to let them tell me when they're ready to talk. And then, of course, that's unless the things that we already talked about are happening.
Well, and, you mentioned boundaries here. It is good for us to teach our kids how to set their own boundaries and all those sorts of things that we don't just, dictate no matter what you think or no matter how you feel. Like, I'm your parent, and so when I say we're going to have the conversation, we're going to have the conversation. Because we do want them to learn how to set healthy boundaries. Yeah,
but typically if you're a kid that was raised in the 80s, you had no rights, you had no boundaries. I'm dad because I said so. This is my house, which I also don't think we should swing the pendulum too far to the other side where it's like, okay, well, whatever you want to do in your space and all this either, right? But having some sort of a balance there where, they can have some boundaries, but they're within reason.
Yeah.
And understanding that, like, mom and dad are still in charge of this house.
Yeah. But if they're at the height of their emotions, we need to give them room to breathe while still being available.
Yeah.
And that can be a delicate balance.
Yeah.
And instead of pushing immediately, offer to check in at a later time.
Yeah.
Hey, you might need some space right now, but I'll check in with you later just to see how you're doing. And so you're letting them know, I'm giving you time, but I also care, and I'm going to come back and see if you're ready to talk later.
Yeah.
And this approach gives them control over the timing and doesn't feel as if you're pressuring them.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Thank you.
And you may need to give them some space and everything because they are at that height of emotion. They're freaking out. They're so angry or they're desperately crying, right? Like that height of emotion, they're going to need space, right?
Well, and, we've got 4 teenage girls in the house, and they're kind of at that stage where whatever emotion they're feeling, they're typically feeling it at its peak. So if they're excited, they are all the way excited. If they're giggly, they are all the way giggly. If they're angry, it is like
rage.
Yeah, Vesuvius level angry. If they're sad, it is weeping sad.
Yeah, exactly. But you can just express your willingness to listen. So sometimes just by letting them know that you're there without being overbearing, that can help. And you can say, like we've said, I'm here when you're ready to talk. There's no rush. So you are giving them space for a little while, waiting for them to kind of come down off of that emotional high. And it just reminds them, like, I care. I care about what this is. Whatever this is, I care about it. But I'm not forcing the conversation. I am allowing you to have a little space.
And one of the things that you can do to encourage conversation is to engage in activities together without direct conversation.
Yeah, this is a great idea.
So sometimes kids may feel more comfortable talking when the pressure isn't on them directly. You are going to have those kids where they like the direct. They want to pour out their entire heart, and they want to sit face to face and whatever and have that conversation. There's other kids where if your eyes are on them, they feel a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And that makes them shut down. So if we can if we can make them think we're directing the attention away from them, they're more apt to kind of open their heart and begin to share with us. Mm-hmm. So maybe you're gonna do something that's kind of low stress together, like going for a walk.
Okay.
Going for a walk, you're typically not looking at each other. You're just kind of looking at whatever. And that opens up opportunities to talk about other things and segue into what's really going on. Maybe drawing. Got some kids that like art and all of that. Or even watching a show together. It might make them feel more at ease to open up without the weight of a formal conversation.
Yeah. And I think I could add to this doing like an adult coloring book together.
Yeah.
Or
like what's adult coloring book?
Adult coloring books have more intricate things to color, and typically you would use a like colored pencils, not crayons,
Okay, I got you. All right.
And then the other thing I thought of was like doing puzzles together, because puzzles, it's quiet and it's kind of mindless, but your mind is yet engaged. And so I could see that being a really good idea for how to keep a conversation going.
I like this idea of, cooking together also.
Yes, cooking together is a
You're
great
making
idea.
lunch or making supper together, and there's, that activity in itself is very social, and so kind of lowers down the pressure.
Yeah.
To have that conversation.
And I think even just the fact that you're not directly opening up the conversation, you're doing an activity with them and you're letting it alone, they see that you are giving them space. They see that you're not forcing them to talk about it at the moment, and that can be good.
Well, and you're creating a safe space for them to open up and have the conversation.
Yep. Now, if you are a family with multiple kids, this is super important, because most likely your child is not going to want to talk to you about their serious issues in front of your other children.
Yeah.
They're going to need some one-on-one time. This means creating one-on-one time.
One of the things I like to do in this kind of doing something that kind of relieves the pressure off of them, is going for a drive.
Yeah.
Going for a drive along the beach, have some music playing, where I'm not looking at them directly in the face. There's no spotlights on them. We're driving down, having, just enjoying music together, and
hopefully the conversation can come up organically,
yeah,
without you having to be like, all right, why were you angry?
Well, and it is an easier way to work into the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great. And it is important to respect your kids' emotional privacy if they say, I don't want to talk about it. That's something that I've kind of been working through myself, is how do I feel about their emotional privacy? How much emotional privacy should they have? And it is, it's not bad to give your kids emotional privacy, to let them maybe have that space. And this might feel like a rejection, but maybe they aren't comfortable talking to you about it, but they would talk to a therapist who's not in their family. Or maybe they would talk to an aunt or uncle or a, grandma or whatever. That's fine too. I know that would hurt. I think it would hurt my feelings if my kids were more comfortable talking to other people than me, but I hope that I would still want the best for them and recognize, okay, that's, at least they're getting it out to someone. Of course you want it to be a trusted person who is going to lead them in the right direction, whether that is a therapist or family member. But if they are, not wanting to talk, don't take it personally. Don't push them too hard unless you really need to push hard. Let them, kind of figure that out with each situation. And it's not going to be the same with each kid, and it's not going to be the same each time with each kid.
Right. Yeah.
Every single time is going to change.
Well, every scenario is different. How they're feeling at the time is different. There's so many variables.
When your kids are not at the height of their emotion, or when the situation, the crisis, the whatever has passed, see if you can have a conversation with your child to say, hey, next time when you're upset, I just need you to tell me if you want to talk about it now or later, or if you want to talk to somebody else about it. And that has helped me with my relationship with the girls, because sometimes I've said, like, listen, it's okay if you don't want to talk to me about it right away, but I need to know that we are going to talk about it later. Or I need to know that you are willing to deal with this thing. If I know you're willing to deal with it in the future, I can let you go for now. But sometimes I feel like they're trying to not talk about it at all. They're trying to pretend this thing didn't happen, and it did happen, and we're not going to pretend it didn't happen. But if you need a little space to pretend it didn't happen for a while, that's fine. Just tell me that's what you need, and reassure me that you're going to talk about it later. So sometimes having those really specific personal conversations when they're not in the middle of a crisis can be a really good thing as well.
Well, and part of this is teaching your kids that problems don't just go away by themselves.
Right.
Problems don't just resolve themselves.
Yeah.
In fact, they tend to get worse if you ignore them.
Mm-hmm.
And the repercussions, get a lot more severe.
Yeah.
And so it is, all this is a part of trying to help them learn how to work through the emotions and the feelings and the situations that they're going through.
Yeah. And one thing too to think about is, as you are willing to give them space to open up at their own pace, you can be building trust for the long term. where they're like, I know that my mom or my dad respect my emotional boundaries. They expect how I'm feeling. They respect like when I want to talk about things, and they respect my timing even. And so because of that, I trust them. I trust them with the information. I trust them with my emotions or whatever else. But it's really important to offer them space when they need it or when you can give it. And yet at the same time, maintain that quiet, consistent presence. That way they know, and it's totally clear, that you're there for them when they are ready. And that eventually, yeah, we're going to have this conversation. I'm letting you choose the when.
So when you were growing up, like what was your parents' approach? Were you always I mean, I'm sure there were periods of your time where there were certain things you just didn't want to talk about with your parents, but were they like force you into a conversation? Were they went around having a conversation? Like, what was that growing up like for you growing up?
I've always been like this, where I always wanted to talk about everything pretty much. If it was something that I didn't want to tell my parents about, like, for a long time, I pretended like Thomas was just a friend. And meanwhile, he was like writing me love letters. So, if it was anything about you, I would talk to my sister.
Okay.
But
what was the fear about talking to your parents about it?
Because my dad said I couldn't date till I was 30, and I was in a relationship. I put that in quotes because we never went on a date or anything. But
yeah.
So I was hiding that from them.
So, but why? Like, are you afraid of them being angry?
Or
like,
yeah.
What was
yeah.
it?
Yep. My dad, I was afraid of my dad, not my mom. I was afraid of my dad getting angry and afraid that then I wouldn't be able to see you or just hang out with you.
Okay.
So being just friends, we could still hang out and whatnot. But so we had a kind of a unique situation where we lived 30 minutes from the big city. We lived in a small town. So we were always driving in the car back and forth. And we had the most beautiful, now that I look back on it, I realize, family meetings in the car. We would often turn off the radio, and we would just have discussions about what we heard at church or what was happening in our lives. And so we had quite good communication in our home. Like, we all talked about pretty much everything. Lanita, my sister, is a verbal processor. My mom is a verbal processor, and so am I. My dad lands somewhere in the middle, but he likes to talk. So Josiah might have been the only one who was quieter, but we all had good conversations, and we were all allowed to talk about how we felt and stuff.
Yeah, and see, and I just don't remember really having serious conversations about things that were happening.
Right. Yeah. But it is important. Like, and I think why you didn't is because it was uncomfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you guys avoided anything uncomfortable. And so we've got to make sure that we're not doing that as parents, but we are having the uncomfortable conversations, that we are discussing the things that are important to discuss, and making sure that we're helping our children understand how to get through their emotions and to process them in a healthy way.
Yeah. And so with the family meeting here tonight, you're going to have a conversation with your kids. Now, if your kids are younger, they're probably still at the stage where I want to tell mom and dad about everything that's happening.
Enjoy it.
But as you kind of progress, as your kids get older, there is going to be this dynamic that happens that you've got to try to figure out when is the right time, when's not the right time. And so having a conversation when it's not a serious moment, there's nothing going on in anybody's life that you know about that we really need to talk about at the moment. Just having a conversation about the best way to approach this with them is, and just let them know, like, hey, there's things that happen in your life that we really need to talk about. And you're talking to them about things like, hey, problems don't get better on their own. You've got to learn to talk about them. You got to learn to work through them. And so you're having that, but hey, I know there's times where you're not ready. And so what are some ways that I can help you feel comfortable talking, and getting an idea of how they want to navigate some of these conversations? Like we said, they're all going to be different, and they're going to change over time. Mm-hmm. But the more you have conversations about it, even now while they're younger, the easier it is to keep having these conversations about, hey, this is the way we you were comfortable doing this before. Seems like that might have changed a little bit. What are you comfortable with now? And just kind of having this conversation about the right way to have these conversations. Does that make sense?
Yeah, a lot of conversation in that sentence.
Thanks for joining us today, you guys. Please go and subscribe to the Family Meeting Podcast from your favorite podcast provider. And if you found this information helpful, please share this episode on social media and invite your friends and family to listen in with you.
To find more content and information Lysandra and I provide, you can go to our website, familymeeting.org, or email us at info@familymeeting.org. If you'd like to shoot us a text or call us, you can send a voice message at 904-257-3062.
And we want to invite you to join us for our next family meeting as we discuss an exciting way to bring back the passion in your relationship, even if you've been married for a long time. We had a really cool Valentine's this year. Thomas totally planned an awesome getaway and
surprised her
in many different ways. And so we want to share all of that with you.
I mean, not all of it, but
we're going to carefully share with you about our Valentine's and give you an idea for maybe bringing a little passion into your relationship.
Okay. It was a great time. I'm looking forward to having the conversation. There's some funny things, some fun things, some exciting things. So it'll be a fun I'm really looking forward to that.
You just want to have this episwith now.
I do. I'm like, let's move right into the next episode right now.
You got to wait till next week, babe.
All right, I guess. But with that, we will see you all next time. This meeting is adjourned. Got me so flustered. I was like,
you messed up
I don't remember
line.
how to even end an episode now. I'm like, can we just talk about it now? Let's not even end the episode.
Put it this way, you guys. You don't want to miss next week's episode.
Part 2, yes.
You can't even think straight, okay?
You do not. You're going to want to have a viewing party. Invite all your friends over.
Awkward.
To share the episode together. It'll be a great time.
A viewing party. Interesting idea.
Yeah, so you will, a little teaser there. Teaser. For next episode.
Yeah. But thank you for joining us this week. Share with us the ways that you kind of know when to push and when not to push and how you push when you push to talk to your kids. And with that, we will say goodbye and have an awesome week.